What up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fulfillment Podcast, where we sit down and have conversations as men to help remind us that we always have access to fulfillment, regardless of our circumstances that we go through in life. In this week's conversation, I sit down with my really good friend, Samuel Hansen, and we talk about the self-defense world, what it takes for men to be capable of being protectors over those that are under our influence. We talk about mindset, we talk about capabilities, training, and how that helps us find fulfillment. We also sit down and discuss his experience with divorce and how he's been able to work through that and navigate ways where he can still find fulfillment even though he's going through one of the toughest times in his life. If you find this episode valuable, please subscribe, comment, share your thoughts. I'd love to have more conversations in the comment section of how this is able to help you. With that being said, here's episode 2 with Samuel Hansen. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it helps you find more fulfillment. Welcome back to another episode of the Fulfillment Podcast, guys. Today, we have one of my best friends on. He's literally one of my mentors, and I have learned so much from him from a creative standpoint, from just being a good man, a husband. I could go on for days about this guy, but I'm just so appreciative of him. Samuel Hansen, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you, brother, for being here.
Thanks, dude, for inviting me. I appreciate that so much.
I asked this question last week to our guest, but I think it's a pretty good question, to be honest. But people know Samuel Hansen as the amazing videographer who films beautiful weddings. They also know the Samuel Hansen behind Gunmen and his passion for self-defense and firearms. If someone were to ask you, Samuel Hansen, who are you? What would your definition be of like, who is Samuel Hansen to you?
Oh, dang. Getting deep already.
Why not?
I'll keep it surface level at first. I think fundamentally, I'm a simple man. And I think in a lot of ways, I enjoy being happy. I enjoy the simple things of life. I love the calm energy that I get to experience in the mornings and the peacefulness of my usual day. When I picture like what I am on the outside, if I was somebody else looking at me, I would just see maybe a guy who smiles a lot and who enjoys like the little things. I don't know, like when I drive anywhere, I drive a lot. Like I usually just look out if there's a beautiful cloud. I'm like, dang, I love that. You know, like
That's crazy.
Yeah, I just look at the mountains. I think they're beautiful.
That's crazy.
And I'm just like simple. I don't need a lot in this life. I care about the people that are in my life, and I care about just the things that hold like deep meaning to probably what other people care about too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I say it's crazy, your cloud remark, because there'd be random, maybe it's the creative side of us, but like nothing's nicer than like golden hour and then you have like clouds in there.
I'm like, oh man, if I could just get a couple in there.
I have that same thought when we're driving, when me and Cass are driving, and I'm just like, man, that's a mean looking sunset right there. Like
sometimes
that is
you
beautiful.
See a hill, you're like, oh man, like you know, with the right angle, that could
because some days it's like there's no clouds, it's just like blue sky, just really bright.
Yeah.
And then you get that perfect overcast day, and it's like,
that's what I'm saying.
Ooh,
yep,
that is pretty.
It feels good. Everything's right in the world. Yeah, I love that.
Oh man, I hope we don't sound like potheads.
I know,
just talking about the sky, but man, I know exactly what you mean when you say that.
Yeah, like I mean, to that, I love working. I love building businesses. From a kid. I mean, when I was just a little kid, my mom called me the bank of the family because I would just do whatever it took to like just get a little bit of money and save it. And I would keep it in a box. My older brother, if he ever watches this, like he always knew the combination somehow. Always knew the combination of my box of money and stuff. But yeah, so I mean, as a kid, I would rake leaves, work, and I just feel like I always had something inside me that wanted to do good things for myself and prepare myself for, you know, like whatever it was. And so that was always inside of me. I raked leaves for forever as a kid. I mowed lawns as a kid. And then it just kind of compiled on like realizing that I was capable of getting things done by myself. And in high school, I never like really played team sports or anything like that. I never thought that I like worked well on teams, but I think that was a lot of just insecurity in myself because I was short and skinny and like not super capable of things. But my brain and like my personality was always like less agreeable in the sense where like what everyone else was doing, I felt like I would challenge things and be like, well, why are you doing that? And that kind of led me in a ways to entrepreneurship because I didn't like being told what to do. And that's to this day, I still don't like
100%.
From the government, from authority
100%. figures
that I don't care about. Like if you don't have any substance or value to you, then it's really hard for me to take what you're saying and you know, like appreciate it in some ways. But yeah, so I was kind of pushed in an entrepreneurial direction because of my desire to be self-sufficient and capable. And so, and also just liked being able to wake up, you know, at 11 if I felt like it and do whatever I wanted.
And sleep at 3 a.m.
Sleep at 3 a.m. like I always do. I mean,
as usual.
Dude, it's still bad. It's the same.
I know when I text you and you just like, you're like the worst guy to text back, like communicate, but
I know.
Over time, I've noticed like, well, this guy has like a weird schedule. So I don't ever get mad at you for texting me back like super random, like 2 days later. I'm like,
2 days, a week,
it's fine.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, it's fine because I know Sam will text me back.
And to be honest, I know it's there, it's on unread, and I look at it and I'm like, I'm gonna do that.
Yep.
So I do. I swear I love it.
How has that lifestyle served you in your pursuit of just being a really good guy in the world that we live in? Like, because that's a pretty good, I would say that's almost that's a pretty rare trait to have at a young age where you kind of have the entrepreneurial mindset, but you don't know what that means yet.
Right.
But you have it.
Yeah.
Right. And it kind of turns in naturally to a business owner or venturing off to new ideas. But how has that served you over the years? Because you're a young dude.
That's true. Yeah.
Because how old are you? You're 27. Like, I remember I've known you for like the last 5 years or so. So like you were literally like 21, 22 when I met you.
So wild.
I felt like you were an old soul. Like you were a very mature guy for your age. And I think that's why it was so easy for me to get along with you, is because we were kind of you were like 5 years older than you really were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I've heard that before. People do.
But I come back to that. It sounds like that's what your whole life was like.
Yeah.
You know?
In some ways, it's funny though, because like when I asked my parents like what I was like as a kid, they were like, "Oh, you're just like a calm little, like you didn't talk a whole lot, but you were just like a sweet little boy. Like you really, you know, there wasn't any part of me that was like unagreeable or to that understanding. I was just a funny little kid who just liked being around other people and pretty similar to how I am now, but just soft and kind of a gentle soul. But I do feel like I had an understanding and could relate more to like adults. When I talked to adults, I was like, I feel like I understand what you're saying. And I've always felt like I could like kind of read between the lines with people. And so as a kid, I mean, being able to like talk with adults and feel understood and heard, I think my dad really helped me develop like a lot of those traits, because when I was younger, we would go on drives and he would just ask me like meaningful questions to me. And for anyone who doesn't know, my dad's a clinical psychologist who's worked in private practice, his own business for 20 plus years. And so he's good at like just listening and understanding people and asking good questions. So I always felt heard and understood by him. And I would ask like really like deep questions about like the meaning of life and things like that. So he would be like, yeah, you were just like curious and you were connected in some way to like just questions that most people probably weren't thinking about.
That's pretty cool.
So I don't know.
What would you say, I mean, we've had conversations about your relationship with your dad, and it just sounds like an incredible relationship.
I love
that
my
your
dad
your
so
dad's
much.
like Superman.
Yeah.
When we talk about your dad,
That's
but
how I feel about him. Yeah.
coming from looking at it from the perspective of a future father, both of us are future fathers, but like, how did your dad take your curiosity and handle it in the right way to make sure that you knew, like, one, this is a safe space, you can ask me whatever you want.
Yep.
And two, that you were going to get answers that would help you, not like tear you down or make you question, your love for God, if you know what I mean?
Yep.
What were some things that your dad maybe did that we could add to our little toolbox at fatherhood?
Dude, that's huge. I always tell my dad whenever I talk about this, I'm like, you weren't perfect in the sense where you never got mad at me or upset or anything like that. Like, when I made mistakes, he was authoritative, let me know what I did wrong. And like he was stern, and he took care of me in that way, which I think a father should do. But he was so quick to ask for forgiveness. And I don't remember him as much getting mad at me as I do remember him asking for forgiveness and desiring to be close and in a relationship with me. He was soft and gentle when it mattered, and stern when it mattered. So I'm going to take that forever. I mean, that's the most valuable thing that he's ever done for me, is in his fatherhood or his journey in that. But I think the softness was like really key in helping me feel like I was safe with him and I could talk to him, because I knew if I did make a mistake, I had to talk to him. I had to tell him what I did. But after all the hard stuff was over, I knew that there was going to be a gentleness and the meek, just like, I would just imagine it as like the warm embrace of a hug after, it's like, that sucked, but you're safe now.
Yep.
So that was good for me.
I love that. I think that's super valuable. I think for me, in the generation that I grew up in and the culture that I grew up in, it was very disciplinary. And when you made a mistake, you knew it was going to be a bad day for you.
Yeah.
Which it was. But the thing that I appreciate, it wasn't my dad. My dad was the one that was working all day. So it was my mom that was with us all day.
Dang.
And my mom was a disciplinarian. And so, but I love that trait that I will always remember my mom being the disciplinary, but she always did the same thing. She would always apologize. You would get a hug from her and you knew she loved you.
Yeah, exactly.
That will never be a question that I have when it comes to my parents, both my parents. But I also remember sometimes what I remember from my dad was when my mom would discipline us, my dad would be the first one to say, it's okay, you're all right. Now go say sorry to your mom for what you did. And it was very rare when that happened that my mom wouldn't be already in tears, though, when we come and say sorry to her, and then she would say sorry, and then we'd be fresh, new start again. But I love that my dad inserted himself in the way he did, because he knew his role to play in that. Like, you couldn't have two disciplinary people in it, right? It had to be a balance between the two. And I think looking back, I don't know if they realized it, but me in my later age, I think I realized the value in that I would love to be, I don't want to say, I don't want to discipline my kids the way that I got disciplined, but I do want to have that stern and the loving balance, right? Between the two, where it's like, when you did wrong, I'm going to let you know when you did wrong, but I'm also going to add an increase of love afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. It sounds like that's what your dad did.
Yep. Yeah. In a lot of ways. So I respected him so much. There's a quote that I love. It's a Jordan Peterson quote, but he says that you should be a monster and then you should learn how to control it. And he says there's no virtue in being weak. And he uses this example of a rabbit. He says a rabbit isn't virtuous because it's incapable of doing any harm. He's like, the virtue comes when you're capable of doing harm, but you restrain yourself. And that resonated with me. I wanted to be capable, and I saw it in my dad, where he was capable of great anger And I mean, he's a big guy. Like he could really hurt you if he wanted to. But the way he showed restraint was where his virtue lied. He was capable, but controlled.
Yep.
And so that meant a lot to me. That taught me how to respect him because I knew what he was capable of. But in a lot of ways, I would see the virtue in that in and of itself.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I think about this is kind of on topic, but not really our realm. But I'm a huge MMA fan.
Oh yeah.
And I think that applies in most of the martial arts world where these are literally trained killers.
Yeah, these guys with their bare hands, they can do the most monstrous things.
But they're also the most respectful human beings on the face of the earth in the way that they carry themselves, knowing that they can literally take a life if they wanted to. They have the tools and the skill set to do so, but they respect everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
I think one does come with the other in most cases.
Yep.
In a general sense, when you increase your ability to do those things, you also increase on the other side your capacity to not do those things.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
It almost brings a sense of humility. Your humility goes through the roof the more I think you recognize your skill sets. And I think that's a good segue into the firearms industry.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, all I thought of growing up was guns were super bad. They're evil.
Yeah. They do evil things.
They do evil things.
And that's not wrong. That's true. They do do a lot of crazy things. So.
But I also really love the shift in mindset that I gained when it came to learning more about the lifestyle of a responsible gun owner.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the mindset of the MMA fighter, right? Where it's like you have the ability to take a life.
Yep.
But it almost gives you an added appreciation for life.
Absolutely.
In a weird way, right?
That's huge. That's like kind of where the whole idea of gunmen came from. Like I initially started with a desire to protect innocent life. That's why I started carrying a gun in general. I didn't want to have like a weapon in a sense. I wanted to have a shield. And that's what a firearm does for me. It levels the playing field and it allows me to be capable to preserve innocent life, which is like how I end all of my videos. I'm like, go to the range, train so you can be capable to defend innocent life if that's what it came to. So it's not like for people who are weary about carrying a firearm or like they look at us maybe and they're like, those guys are just paranoid or something like that. The reality of it is I care about life in a way where I'm capable of protecting it. I developed skills that allow me to protect if I had to. And if you're on the side of people saying like, oh, you're doing it wrong, I would never carry a gun. Well, the reality is you're incapable. And that's the hard truth.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Until you're willing to work towards capability.
Yep, exactly.
Right? Because I think I was in that boat where I'm like, I don't know if I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But it was more so because I think my capabilities weren't there yet.
Yep.
But the more that I did my due diligence personally to research the reasons why I would want to carry a firearm or even learn about a firearm, have a firearm in my home, right? Yeah. The moment that I took that a step further and made that part of my lifestyle and became more capable, I think that's when the appreciation for life really started to kind of the wheels were turning now. Now it's like, it's kind of weird because like nothing means more to me than my family members, right? I love my family members and nothing like tears me apart more than when other people have their families attacked.
Yeah.
Right. For me, I would love to put myself in a position to always be ready.
Yeah.
If that ever were to happen, give me a 0.5% chance that will ever happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to be ready for the 0.5%.
I know.
Right. Like it's worth it for me to be prepared for that half a percentage than to not be, because when that half a percentage shows up, after that 30 seconds of gunfire happens, you can't bring that back.
No. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And most, like you can I'm really, really like, I level with people. I'm like, you can call that paranoia, because like it's such a small percentage, it's not going to happen to you. So why don't you just live your life normally? And I'm like, what brings peace to me is knowing that I'm capable and being happy that I may never have to use it. You know, like that's the place where I feel the peace.
Yep.
And if you're not nervous about it and you don't experience any like uneasiness going out without a firearm, then I like applaud you. That's great that you don't have, any type of fear around that stuff.
Yep.
And I hope that most people feel that way. At the same time, I'm grateful for those who take on the responsibility to earn these skills that allow other people to feel that way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I have a tremendous amount of respect for law enforcement that openly carry their weapons and are basically open targets.
Yeah.
That's
right. Don't open carry.
But I mean, one of my best friends is a police officer, and he has been for the last couple of years. But man, I pray for them. You know what I mean? It's like
my older brother's a state trooper.
Front line.
Front line.
You know what I mean? It's like a modern day front line.
Yeah. And people think Utah's safe. He sends me videos all the time, though, and I'm like, that's interesting. That's it's a lot different than what people understand in a lot of ways. So
yeah. What are some things that you've adopted into your life when you became a gun owner? Because when you become a responsible firearms owner, your life changes.
Yeah, it does. It changes the clothes that you wear.
Yes, your wardrobe changes, your mindset, everything changes.
Yeah,
you don't realize this beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a lot of ways, your personality does change too. Like you start to look around rooms in a different way. You sit at a restaurant in a different way. You experience life in a more aware state of mind, hopefully. And a lot of that comes from, I would probably just say training in general. Like when I go to the range, which is something I've adopted into my life, is if you're going to be a responsible gun owner, then part of that is learning about your firearm and being capable of using it. And you drop to the lowest ability in a real situation of your training. So people may think that you're going to be a hero as soon as a real situation happens. From what I understand, that's not the case in every way. So all you can do is train to your highest capability and hope that it was high enough to meet the needs of the demand. So training is a big part of what I do. In responsible gun ownership, I want to be capable. So I go to the range, I shoot at targets, and I do my best to make sure that I can hit them.
Yep.
Yeah.
What would you say are some important, let's say we're talking to us 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Our avatars 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. What would you tell that Samuel Hansen, who didn't buy his first gun yet, who's maybe interested?
Yeah.
What are some things that you would give them, some practical advice that you would tell them as far as easing into this new lifestyle? Because it really is a new lifestyle.
Yeah. I would say start mentally preparing yourself. I would say a key aspect of this is having a solid why. And I think my why that I would give somebody else if I could would be care about others as much as you care about yourself. And when it comes down to it, that's really what the basis of carrying a firearm is for me. It's I want to be able to protect myself, and I want to be able to protect others. So changing my mindset to I would do something hard in the defense of somebody else if I had to. That was motivating for me to want to develop those skills in the first place. So, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think in a general sense, like everybody in some level cares about the people that they associate with on a daily basis. And I don't think that they would want something bad to happen to those people. So I think if you look outwardly and say, like I care about these people and I want them to be safe, that would be a good starting point for someone to get into the firearms industry and world.
Yep. I agree. I think mindset is so underrated
Yeah.
when it comes to that whole world of firearm ownership.
Yeah.
I think mindset, if you don't shift your mindset into a specific realm of thinking when it comes to owning a firearm, then you basically become what everyone else thinks firearm ownership is, right?
And in a lot of ways, I mean, you need to be okay taking on responsibility and understanding what responsibility means for you. Responsibility for me in a lot of ways equals fulfillment, and it's drawn a lot of goodness into my life as I've been willing to take on small responsibilities, whether that came to work or wanting what's best for others, or even myself in this capacity. I mean, taking on the responsibility of the defense of other people is a big deal, and it gives you, in a lot of way, like a way to serve every day, even if you're not actively stopping bad guys every day, you know, like that mentality sits inside of your heart and says, I'm doing something good, even if nothing's happening. So
I love that. You're prepared always.
It can be fulfilling. Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
So,
I never thought of that. That's a really cool perspective to have.
Yeah.
When we decided to start this podcast, I mentioned to you over the phone, but it was 3 pillars of ways that we can find fulfillment as men. And I got those 3 principles from the proclamation, a family of proclamation to the world.
Yeah.
And it was to preside, to provide, and to protect. I think that's what our role is as men. I mean, it kind of sums it up right there. How we find fulfillment is, are we doing things that help us in 1, 2, or all 3 of those categories? And I think firearms definitely, obviously, it helps us in the protection category.
Yeah.
But maybe we can dive in just a little bit deeper into that and talk about how our role as protectors in the world that we live in, what are some things that you think we can do better at as far as like fulfilling that role as men in the world we live in?
Yeah. Well, back to like being capable. So training has a lot more to do with just holding and shooting firearms. I think it goes into your physical ability. I think it goes into your mental ability. So there are, if I had to break it down, it'd be 2 main pillars. It's like physical and mental ability. And you have to work those out just as much as you train, I think, in order to be capable in a situation. So like being physically fit is important. There's a lot that goes into like whether or not you're able to solve a situation on if you can get there or not, you know, like if you're, you know,
just logically speaking.
Yeah, just
like
logically speaking. I mean,
it's a simple math equation here. Like,
exactly.
If you can't get there to the top of the hill, you cannot help who's at the top of the hill.
Or if you can't carry someone, or if you can't, you know, if you, there's so many possibilities. The easiest answer is just to be capable. And so what that requires of you is to work out and to eat food that allows your body to grow. This is something that I'm working on like more than ever in my life right now. And unfortunately, like I've got a disease that prevents me from eating everything that I want to. But in so many ways, I'm like trying to buckle down. And so I can actually like get where I want to be physically. Mentally though, there's a lot of aspects to this, but like, I think just training your mind constantly. And one way that I think I do that is by believing in something that's bigger than me. And for me, I mean, that's like the most important thing I think in this world is to have a belief in God. And that's just my personal perspective, but that's gotten me mentally into a place where I feel like I'm bigger than myself, you know, without that. So Oh no, yeah. I think those two things are really important. Physical
Yeah.
fitness is huge though.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, man, I'd love to dive in on the spiritual side.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the last episode that I don't believe, for me as a man, I could reach my capability without my belief in God.
Mm.
And so definitely I can agree with your statement. How is it? Because I also work with a lot of other men who maybe don't prioritize God as much as maybe I would hope they would,
Yeah.
because I see the value in having a God in your life,
Yeah.
consistently trying to work on that relationship with him. For you, how valuable has that relationship been, and how can that help you fulfill all the roles that you have to fulfill in your life? Or ultimately, how does God, here's a better question, let me frame it better.
Now go for
How does God and your relationship with him help you find fulfillment?
Yeah. Well, I'd say first, this all comes back to me in so many ways to responsibility. But if you believe in a God who wants something for you, there are requirements that he sets forth that you can do to become bigger than yourself. So the theory states, the theology states. So there's a figure who cares about you in a way where he says, do these things, take on this responsibility, and I'll make you greater than what you are now. And in so many ways, when I think about my relationship with God, it has been him giving me the reins and the agency, but setting the path. And I have not followed the path all the time. And the growth happens in both ways. So this is the interesting part. I think God intends for you to use your agency. I think he wants you to experience the good and the bad. And so you can have a greater capacity to understand both. And I know that when I don't do the right thing or make the wrong decision, I learn. And I know when I make the right decision, I learn. So in a lot of ways, people might think like, if I don't make the right decision all the time, I'm screwing up, I'm not good, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, so like shame on me. But to my understanding, the growth happens regardless. Like it's all by design. So just the baseline for me is having the understanding that he's there no matter what, whether I make one decision or the other. At the end of the day, I have somebody in my life who cares and who understands that regardless which path I take, I'm going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's nice to know that when I make the right choice, he appreciates that. And I think there's a lot of like goodness that has come into my life from making those good choices. But I just think it's important for people to hear that like you're not lost if you go off the path or something like that. Like the God that I believe in is there regardless. And that's what I found in my life. Like he just cares about you so much that there's the growth is the important part. As long as you stay with him,
Right. It's us that distance from him. He's always going to be there.
In a lot of ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I always want to make sure that I reference challenges, because we as men, we will always go through challenges, and we have responsibilities that we have to stick to in order for us to find fulfillment, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Like whether we want to or not, we have responsibilities as men in this world, as husbands, as fathers, whatever the case may be, whatever role we have. For you, I know that you've gone through a bunch of trials in your life.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
And
nothing I couldn't handle.
Right. As the
yeah.
good book says, right? We don't get challenges we can't handle.
Yeah.
But man, when we get those challenges and we get right up to the edge where we feel like we can't handle it, for whatever reason, God shows his hand and we were able to push through. Yeah. But for you, I know I'd like to touch on this, coming from your divorce, going through that, especially at such a young age.
Yeah.
I know that God had a role to play in that and helping you, but walk me through that. What got you through that challenge?
Yeah. I think about this too. And so in so many ways, I've always felt capable of taking care of myself. I know that might be counter to what I was talking about before. I felt capable of taking care of myself, but I think the true healing and the good happened when I allowed other people in. And I remember when I was going through it, like it was really challenging for me to have a hopeful outlook on things. It seemed like my life was completely falling apart. And to kind of put this in perspective, I mean, it did feel like my life got flipped upside down, but I always felt like I had good people in my life to lift me back up. And I'm also just like a really hopeful person in general. Like I'm pretty optimistic. So I got like blessed with those gifts. But I think a lot of that hope is based in knowing that I have people in my life who care about me and won't give up or let me down. And yeah, I've been reassured of that continually throughout my life, which maybe has brought that hope into my life. So, and I don't know how much it's interesting. I think I had the best case scenario divorce like ever. In the sense that it was very amicable and there was no hard feelings between each other. And I feel like I should put it out there that like neither of us were bad people at the time. Like it wasn't the easiest thing, but it was understandable. So that I think a lot played into why I was able to like heal and like be able to find the good in it. But I would say definitely had a little bit to do with how non crazy it was in the sense. So
I think about men who are in my age, early 30s, who are dealing with marital challenges and some a lot rougher than what I imagined you had gone through.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that diminishes the challenge that needs to be overcome when it comes to divorcing someone you love and you care about.
Yeah.
Right. I think about those guys and I really want to bring value to them.
Yeah.
Right. And so helping them overcome the challenge of a divorce for whatever reason. Right. They all have their challenges and individual trials that they have to overcome when it comes to moving on from that previous marriage. You have kids involved, obviously, and that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
But from a perspective of someone who is moving on from that, you said something that was one of the most powerful lines that I've ever heard from one of my friends. And you said that healing, you didn't have to do that alone. And so dating, remember I asked you if you were dating, checking up on you here and there, and you said, "Yeah, I'm dating. I'm talking. I'm dating around and going through that." And when I asked you, that was your response. I was like, "How was that? Is that like hard?" Or and you responded with that line. I don't have to heal by myself, and that changed my perspective. And I loved that. Ever since I heard it, I was like, man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
But it also takes a special kind of mindset to understand that perspective, right? I'd love to have you speak more on that and how that's served you in a very positive way through this.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, I guess my okayness with vulnerability kind of started when I was younger. Cause like being in the church, when you make a mistake, you have to be extremely vulnerable. And in order to like get that sin away from you, you either have to go to the bishop's office or you have to talk to an adult. And that is like the scariest thing ever. So like all you want to do when you make mistakes when you're a kid is isolate and feel that shame within yourself, not with anybody else. You don't want to experience that.
If I remember right, wasn't your dad your bishop too?
Yeah, for a while.
So that is a whole challenge in itself. Like,
I mean, he was the best guy to talk to, if I'm being honest. But like, at the end of the day, it was like a place where you had to be okay being vulnerable. And that was really hard for me. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest with myself, I kept so much in because I did not want to be vulnerable. But I know where that puts a person, and I know the help you're not getting when you're isolating yourself. Mm-hmm. And this isn't like a call for someone, like if a youth is listening to this, don't feel like you go to the bishop's office or whatever if you make mistakes. I've got a different opinion on that, but
we can get into that if you want.
We should,
Sam, because I know how passionate you are about that, which is totally fine with me.
I think there is so much goodness that can be. So to that though, I think there is so much goodness if you trust the right people, being vulnerable with the right people. So I also think, I wanted to talk about this a little bit before. Mm-hmm. I think another thing or aspect or principle that I took upon myself as a self-reflective person was taking on responsibility for things I know I did wrong or not good enough. And in the marriage, looking at it from the outside now, it's really easy to see everything that I wasn't capable of, didn't do right, or just blatantly disregarded. And I had two options of what I could do moving forward from that. I could say, I'm not good at those things. That was that relationship. I'm moving forward. Or I could say, I'm not good at those things. I want to improve. And so my next relationship can be whole and I can be whole in it. And I chose the second option. So I started.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, I thought so too. Started reading. Started watching videos about how I can be more self-reflective and how I can communicate better. And I think a lot of people struggle with being like, I did that wrong, and when I look at it, I am perfectly okay saying I did that wrong. Mm-hmm. And it was really like in a lot of ways from a communication standpoint, from a being close in a relationship standpoint. Like I was young and I didn't know. And that's just part of life, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you only learn something after the whole experience happened. And so take the good and move forward with that. And that's what I chose to do. Yep. So, and if you're in a relationship right now, I'm not like a therapist or anything like that. I don't have any professional skill in this, but there's never a day that'll go by where you don't have the ability to improve in little ways. The internet's a wild place. You can learn a lot of bad stuff or you can learn a lot of good stuff. So you can improve every day with little videos or things that are educational in every aspect. So
I agree. I think just in the last month, my marriage has really brung a lot of more value in our communication category or department, I guess you could say, where you can definitely learn from the internet, right, about how to be in good relationship. But I would also add that you can learn how to better your relationship in your relationship.
Inside the relationship,
I feel like there's no better source than the person you're in a relationship with.
I think that's so
right?
real.
And I learned that in the last month, maybe the hard way, but I learned it and I'm working on it, right? Where me and my wife can have open dialogue constantly, every single day about ways that we can improve. But I think taking it a step further, because a lot of people have been together for years, right? But a way that you can take that another step is to dive deeper into those conversations. Like make sure your communication is crystal clear. Like all of the intentions are there and all of your expectations are right. And don't assume, right? Like it's like the word, you hear it all the time. The consequence of just assuming know what the other person is wanting or needing.
Horrible. Yeah.
Make no assumptions. Ask the right questions and get the right specific answers.
I would add to that, make sure that they feel safe telling you exactly what they're feeling. And I think that's something I struggled with so much. I kept so much in because I didn't exactly feel like I could be vulnerable. And that wasn't her fault, or it was just what it was. Like it was inside of myself where I was just like, I want to be able to share some things, but I feel like I just can't. So if you're intentionally creating an environment where, you're already in the marriage, at the end of the day, you want to know each other wholly. And in order to do that, you have to be safe with each other where you're allowed to tell each other everything, even the dark stuff, the things that you hate about yourself. It just has to be the truth, but you have to create an environment where the truth can be spoken.
Yeah.
And that's so hard for so many couples and so many relationships and friends that I've talked to. They're like, I don't know, I just feel like I'm going to get yelled at if I tell her how I actually feel. And
I feel like especially in those early years of marriage, those first few years, it's definitely a little bit adjusting that you have to deal with there.
Yep.
But I think it's by design. I think it's
absolutely
marriage forces you to get out of your comfort zone and open up. And it talks. If there's anything I'm going to take away from tonight, it's vulnerability.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think that's the biggest value I'm getting from what you've shared tonight, regardless of the topics we've talked about. I think that's huge.
Yeah,
is being vulnerable in your relationships, whether it be with God, whether it be with your spouse, your children. Being vulnerable, I think there's so much value in that.
Yeah, and the truth matters. Like, if the baseline of every relationship needs to be foundationally built on truth. And I think people struggle with the truth these days. I mean, it is hard to be okay saying exactly how you feel. And that's really the only way that you can move forward to where you want to be. You have to be able to tell the truth. And if you're not able or capable of being honest with yourself, then that's something you got to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another advice from a pretty powerful book. The truth will set you free.
Yeah, the truth will set you free. That's exactly right.
It's almost like the main character in that knows what he was talking about.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. No, I agree.
Man, so I'm thinking about practical things that we've talked about that men can take away to help them hopefully be better men in society, in their neighborhoods, in their families. The biggest thing that I took away was obviously vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think I also obviously we talked about being a protector, being more than just cowboy walking around with a gun.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's mindset, it's lifestyle changes, it's vulnerabilities in there. It's growing more love for those around you.
Responsibility is huge.
Right. It's like you gain more. What's the word I'm looking for? Stewardship. You add more stewardship to your life, and you can still serve without serving people. I think I got that.
Yeah.
A lot of little gems I took away from this episode. But if there's anything we've missed that you feel pressed to share, I'd love for you to add more vulnerability here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of anything that you feel passionate about sharing, that you feel someone maybe in your shoes or a young man coming up in the world that we live in could benefit from.
Yeah, I think if I could give advice to like younger me or something like that, I would say a belief in yourself is cheesy but really important. Like, I don't think I would be where I am without a few key factors. The relationships I have in my life and believing that I was capable of getting where I am now. And I think those two pillars are really the structural foundation for like all the good that has come into my life. So a simple belief in yourself that you are capable, that you can change any day, you can become better every day. The only person you're supposed to compare yourself is to who you were yesterday. Also cheesy, but very true. I think people just need to know how to set realistic expectations of themselves. And even if it's tiny, even if that's where you're at for the day, just embrace the small, and eventually it'll compound into something way bigger. And also the relationship, back to the relationship that I have with God and how fundamental that was for me, even believing in myself. I mean, in so many ways, my understanding of God has given me the capacity to understand more about myself. And I think where that belief is empowered is understanding where I came from at a core level, at a spiritual level. And understanding the attributes and capabilities of a God who is omnipotent, all-powerful, and understanding that I came from those roots makes me feel capable and powerful beyond what maybe I would otherwise. So I think there's a lot to say about that. I also think that if you're a father or someone in a place of authority, a gentleness and a thoughtful self-reflection of yourself is a good behavior to think about every day. Trying to think of a better way to say that, but like be less harsh on yourself in some ways, but be very realistic with yourself and others.
I like self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness is huge in every respect. I mean, if you know where you're at and you can see as yourself as you truly are, that's where you're able to, grow in the ways that you want to. So at the end, it does come back to truth and seeing the world and things as they are.
Yep.
But there is on responsibility, there's another quote that I love. Can't remember it exactly, but it's from Jordan Peterson as well. Listened to quite a bit of his stuff. I think he's a really smart guy. But he says, allow for the possibility that you have something important to contribute to the world and that the world would be a lesser place without that contribution. Don't be afraid to take on responsibility. And I think that has everything to do with owning and carrying firearms. I think we should not be afraid to take on a higher responsibility and look at ourselves as something that's capable. And if you're looking in the mirror and you're thinking, I am not capable, set those goals to get there.
Just say yet at the end of it.
Yeah.
I'm not capable yet.
Yep, I'm not capable yet.
But what am I going to do about it? You know what
exactly
I mean?
right.
I think I feel so strongly about that when it comes to men in the world that we have today. I think we need to empower ourselves more to be able to stretch ourselves to bring value to the world that the world needs so desperately from real men. Right. And this is a good example of that, where I think there's too many men looking in the mirror saying to themselves, I'm not capable. Yeah. When in reality you are. You just need to understand what it takes and you need to be willing to do it.
If that man is looking in the mirror saying that, man, you're self-reflective enough to get yourself on track. Like if you have ever looked in the mirror or had the thought, I'm not good enough, then you are capable of getting where you want to be, because it starts with the self-reflection, the realization that you're not where you want to be, yet.
So powerful.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. That men have so much good to offer.
Absolutely.
And we, in our respective roles, are absolutely necessary to this world. There are so many important things that we are capable of that we should take the responsibility of. And I'm going to keep saying that, but when it all comes down to it, those three pillars that you talked about at the beginning, those things are a great foundation to, kind of set the level. If you're like, I don't know where to start, maybe just start with those three things. Yep. and do little things to apply to each of them.
Preside, provide, and protect.
Yep.
There's always room for improvement in all three categories.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think that's also when we recognize the need for improvement in any of those three categories and we make improvements, there lies the fulfillment.
Yeah.
You know, when you can look back and say, man, I got better today in doing this thing.
Yeah.
What more could a man ask for?
No, I totally agree. It's hard in a podcast setting to be able to reach and touch like the hearts of the people that you care about, you know, because like people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, well, those guys look like they've made it, you know. I know.
You can say that all you want.
It was funny, and like maybe some guys won't be saying that. They'll be like, "Oh, look at those guys," but maybe some people will be looking at this thinking like, "Oh man, they're just like those guys are everything that like I'll never be," stuff like that. But I was the kid who thought I would never be, you know, and like it. Don't think that. It's not true, you know?
Yep. Mindset's everything.
Yeah, I know. I wish if I could have this exact conversation with the individual watching this saying I'm not good enough, I think in a matter of 20 minutes, I could help them realize that they were capable.
Break that down into 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
And I'm the guy, Sam.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not capable to do anything great in this world as a man, Sam. I'm married. I have a 9-to-5 job that I hate.
No pressure. Yeah.
I don't find fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my life is right now, and that's where it's going to be for the next 50 years till I leave this earth. What say you?
Oh, what say me? I compressing that into 30 seconds is hard.
Yeah.
You got to know.
No, I got you. I got you. It's way deeper than that. I wish it was a 30-second answer, huh?
I know.
That every man could get for themselves and find fulfillment the next morning.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, if you can make people realize that they're not alone at the end of the day, because like a lot of those feelings of hopelessness are generated when they're like, oh man, that seems so hard to do by myself. And you're like, oh, well, you know, if I could help someone understand that they didn't have to do it by themselves, then that would give hope, at least in a way where they would maybe have enough hope to start somewhere, you know?
Yep. There's a quote that I love. Myron Golden. Look him up. You change your life. He says that it's not that you can't find success. You're just not aware of the success that's all around you already.
Yeah.
It's the awareness part that you're missing. Success is everywhere in abundance. You're not aware that it's there.
Yeah. So. And just, I mean, to that's a great point. We look around. Sometimes I do this little fun experiment where I look around and try to find somebody where I'm like, there's no way that they're doing anything cool with their life. And then you talk to them and you're like, no way you're a CEO of a company. You know, like sometimes the unexpected people are doing the coolest things.
Yep.
And with that perspective, like you just don't know where, or you're not aware of it.
Yep.
Like people on this earth are really cool in a lot of ways. There's so many people. If you just talk to them for 5 minutes, I mean, if there was anything I could give to someone, it'd be to develop a skill of asking questions. Because like that is where you can learn. You don't learn by talking. You don't learn by teaching. You learn by asking questions. Well, you do learn by teaching, but that's because you're asking questions. Yeah. If you're doing it right. But yeah, I mean, all it takes sometimes is to be like, oh yeah, you look like kind of a weird guy, but what do you do for work?
Yep.
You know? And then they're like, oh yeah, I started this crazy company and now I'm doing this wild thing. And you know, like it's,
but again, it comes back to that vulnerability where you need to like bring down your pride a little bit.
Yeah.
Get out of your own way and get to know people.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked what that'll do for your morale, your confidence, right? I think it comes full circle. We talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but as we look outward rather than inward, some magical way, the Lord blesses us with more confidence in ourselves as we look to serve others.
Yeah. And that's reality, even in a conversational sense. I mean, if you're focused on the question that you're going to ask next, You're not focusing on the answer that they're giving you.
Exactly.
And you're going to learn a lot more when you're asking questions and actually listening to their responses. That's a piece of relationships that I hope to continually develop, is actually listening when I ask a question and like wanting to understand the answer. That's a baseline to forming a really positive and fun conversation.
Yep.
So,
and that's great marriage advice. I think
listening.
that's a forever thing that you're going to work on too in relationships. But whoever's watching this, I would love for them, if they never knew who Samuel Hansen was, to branch off and get to know you more. But obviously one of the things that has absolutely gone through the roof in the last year or two is gunmen. But what's new? What's coming up for gunmen? What can people what can we get excited about when it comes to gunmen? Because this platform that you created, we've talked about it before. Like this has been years in the thoughts, but like I can confidently say that the moment you said you were going to do it, I was like, you're going to kill it. There's a need for it.
It's so wild.
You have the skill set for it, the mindset for it, and it's going to be great. People need it.
There was, it's so interesting to watch the growth of gunmen and how quickly it took off. I think there's two categories of people who enjoy my content. One category of them enjoys the entertaining, clean, minimalistic approach that I took to the channel. And I think there's another category of people who appreciate the values that I place on preparation and helping people get into the gun industry in general. My main goal, and I think there's a third category who appreciates both. My main goal behind starting the channel was to hopefully inspire people to think that firearms aren't as scary as maybe they thought before, and also to understand that the baseline of what we're doing here, we might be building out really cool looking firearms, but I really want you to build out the cool firearm and then go train with it, you know? And that's kind of what happened as I started to build more guns on the channel with my aesthetic. I loved the way they looked, and that caused me to be like, well, I want to go shoot it now. So like kind of what my motivation was behind it was like, yeah, build out the super cool gun, love it, and then maybe you'll love it so much that you want to shoot it and train with it. And so you can be more capable. So it's kind of a backdoor to helping people become capable in the defense of innocent life. Like maybe when they go out and shoot the gun that they love, they'll be like, that was really fun, let's go again. And sequentially they'll get better. And so like if I can trick you into training, then maybe that's good. I think though that second category of people really, really relate to the end of my videos where they look at just a normal guy who's never served in the military, never served in law enforcement or any capacity of official stuff like that, but still has the desire and took on the responsibility of the defense of innocent life. And those people make up the community of gunmen. That's what I wanted to create when I set forth in this YouTube endeavor. But I appreciate those people. I want them to know that there is a large community of individuals who are taking on that responsibility. And I want that in and of itself to inspire others to take on that responsibility as well. And I think that's what's happening with the channel.
I think so too. So,
yeah, you're just looking at a regular guy who cares about others. And I think that's relatable.
And I think that's important for people to understand that you don't have to be, you know, we love our law enforcement. We said earlier, we love anyone who puts their lives in defense of others and love their country and serve it with all their heart. But you don't necessarily have to enlist in order to have those same beliefs and those same goals and mindset to protect innocent life. Like you don't need a badge to to think that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We should all be thinking that way.
Mm-hmm. You can have that mentality. You can have the ability, you can be a light. And that's kind of what my logo represents. It's a moth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the body of it is a 5.56 round. My little motto thing is seek the light. And in a lot of ways that came down to seek enlightenment, seek knowledge, seek understanding, and, just in general, seek good things. And there's a lot more to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then the bullet being the body is being capable. So that's kind of the full representation, is seeking good things and being capable of, defense as well. So yeah, back to that quote in a way, be a monster and learn how to control it. That is in and of itself the moth, in my opinion. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that you have the depth that you have when it comes to your logo. Your way of thinking is very few people in my life go to those depths in anything, whether it be religion.
It's a wild place to be inside.
Yes, but I love it. I appreciate it. Any conversations we have, but there's substance there, and I believe it's worth having.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. This was amazing. And I know for me, like I said when we first started, podcast for me is like a way of just talking to people, but for me to learn as well, and to add to my tool belt of things that I can use to just be the best man that I can be, the best husband that I can be to my wife, the best brother that I can be to my siblings, whatever the case may be, whatever roles that we have to play in this life. These conversations, I hope, can help us play those in the best way possible. So I appreciate you adding value to whoever watches this podcast.
Yeah.
I really, if one person watches this podcast and that one person finds value,
I would love that.
We've won.
That's all I want, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Is there any closing thoughts or anything you want to say before I land the plane?
Man, be a good man.
Be a good man.
Be a good man.
I love it. Well, there you have it. Thank you for tuning into the Fulfillment Podcast. In the words of Samuel Hansen, be a good man. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.
All right.